Dear colleagues, welcome back. Welcome to the first session of our conference. I always like imagining writers from different eras meeting each other, just trying to imagine what they would be talking about. And I must admit that it would be fascinating to see what Viçen, Tilkiyan and Elif Shafak might be talking about, and who knows if that might become a topic of our discussions afterwards. In any case, I'm very happy to welcome Professor Hülya Çelik from the Ruhr Universität in Bochum in Germany. In 2016, she received her PhD in 16th century Ottoman Divan poetry at the University of Vienna. From 2018 to 2020, she was a postdoc researcher in the project The Oriental Outpost of the Republic of Letters, Sebastian Tegnagel, the Imperial Library in Vienna, and Knowledge About the Orient. This was a research project that was being funded by one of Austria's support funds for academic research, the FWF. Since September 2020, she has been a junior professor for Turkish literature and culture at the Department of Oriental and Islamic Studies at the Ruhr Universität. Professor Çelik's talk today is entitled The Old Skull Rolling from the Cemetery, Mezarlıktan, Yuvarlanan, Eski, Kafa, Viçen Tilkiyan's Socio-Critical essay in Armeno-Turkish. Perhaps a last point regarding organization, we will first listen to the two talks. So after Professor Çelik has spoken, I will introduce Professor Yıkık, and then after the two presentations, we will have a discussion about the two talks. So, Professor Çelik.
Thank you. So I'm sorry for having a false title in the program. I will not, as Laurent Mignot already said, I will not talk about a scroll, but about a skull today. So, sorry, I will keep it like that for a second. If Viçen Tilkiyan is known to scholars of Turkish literature in the 19th century at all, it is mainly for his translations or adaptations of European literature to Turkish. Mostly due to bibliographical works, it is clear that he also offered literature in Armeno-Turkish. This is Turkish with Armenian letters. Further, we are informed by archival material that Tilkiyan was a bookseller at the Babı Ali Caddesi sometime between the 1860s and the 1880s. Only in the course of the last years, mostly due to digitization activities in state libraries, we have come across Tilkiyan's and other Turcophone Armenian authors' literary outputs written in Armeno-Turkish. One of these sources, which was made available through digitization, is the print Mezarlıktan, Yuvarlanan, Eski, Kafa, the old skull rolling from the cemetery. We know of two prints or two books, one in the National Library of Armenia in digitized form and one in the Library of the Mehtarist Congregation in Vienna. It is authored by Tilkiyan and is a semi-polemic and semi-satirical essay, I would say, but it has also the qualities of a pamphlet, and maybe we can discuss this later. This text starts with a nightmare that takes place at an ancient cemetery and leads to an inner communal debate on old and new, on progressiveness and backwardness. In my talk, I will present this socio-critical writing of Viçen Tilkiyan and will try to contextualize its political layers. So here I just gave you a list of his works. These are the titles of Tilkiyan's works only according to bibliographical information from various catalogs and bibliographies. As Günil Özlem Ayaydın Cebe underlined, not all of them are available yet. Besides the two pamphlets of which I will talk today, we see more titles within, as you can maybe, the novels, I made it with question marks because in some cases we are still not sure if we could call them novel, but in the great framework of prose fiction, I think we can put them in this category. Günil has studied the two works Sıtkı Canan and Çoban Kızlar, which you have seen earlier. Of the latter, the Çoban Kızlar, the shepherdesses, the Ottoman Turkish and the Armeno-Turkish versions she took into account, and this was published in Ankara 2016. However, the Armeno-Turkish version of Çoban Kızlar is not edited in this study. It's a little bit shorter than the Ottoman Turkish version, but Günil compared it also with other, let's say, Galate versions. And besides that, she made further investigation about Tilkiyan's Çoban Kızlar in her article. And I'm sorry that I didn't put the year there, but I can tell you later. So maybe you can see the first one, the bibliographical data was, or Günil in 2016 wrote that especially the third title, which you can see here, Gülünya yahut kendi görünmeyerek herkesi gören bir kız, 31 geceye taksim olunmuş. So this was is a title which we come across also in Johann Strauss articles, and I think also Laurent Mignon mentions this somewhere, I'm not sure, but now we have it also. We know that it is at the National Library of Armenia. We can download it and work with it, which we already started together with Ani Sargsyan. I'm working on an edition of this intriguing title. What we can add, at least from the work which I will show you today, Mezarlıktan, Yuvarlanan, Eski, Kafa, we can be sure that Viçen is from Ankara, because he is referring to his Istanbulite Armenian fellows. Then we can. So, what is the text about? This text of barely 10 pages and 3,000 words, printed in Istanbul at the Mühendisyan printing house, begins with a dream and turns into a kind of pamphlet, presumably addressed to the editor and authors of the newspaper Sedai Hakikat, or Hakiket, Voice of Truth. This newspaper appeared in Istanbul between 1870 and 1873 and was published 3 times a week. It's the concessionaire, we say, imtiyaz sahibi was Mikhail Eksarjian, and the newspaper was printed in the same printing house, the Mühendisyan. And unfortunately, the National Library of Armenia has also a big repository of Armeno-Turkish newspapers, but we don't have the year 1870 there. but 71 and 72. And it's very likely that the Mechitarist congregation in Vienna houses also some issues, and this will hopefully be a project soon in Vienna. And I just want to say the first in Mezarlıktan, Yuvarlanan, Eski, Kafa, I will come back to that later. Viçen Tilkiyan he mentions another text of him titled Sedai Nahak, the unjust voice. And this must have been written earlier, but in the same year. This text too has the qualities of a pamphlet criticizing the inadequacy of the various articles and matters in the newspaper Sedai Hakikat. However, let's come back to our text of today. The first person narrator dreams that he's in a cemetery at night. He's cowering in a corner, anxiously observing the surroundings, when suddenly a gravestone moves and a dead skull emerges. I'm showing you the Turkish transcription and will read the English translation, if this is okay. The other night, I had a dream. I was in a cemetery on the Asian continent of the globe. It was night, a frightening state of affairs. If the mentioned dream had not revealed a truth to me at the end, I would have been grateful to the one who wakes me from this dream for the rest of my life. And he continues, I will not show you all the text. I hope this will at the end be in our edited volume. But we see many, let's say, ego documents already in this part of the pamphlet, I would say. So maybe it's not so interesting for all of us, but it means something for me. He says as you can see, he does not, or it becomes clear, he does not believe in ghosts and similar things, but nevertheless, he is full of fear that one of the dead will come to life and attack him. He tries to show it, let's say, vividly, and here also it becomes more, we have more detail about his feelings in this concrete situation, where we still not know in which direction the story will go. So when you read this, you think it's a nightmare. And here he describes, this is the situation when one of the gravestones starts to move and a very yellowed and old skull appears. Then the skull begins to roll and moves from Üsküdar, Bağlarbaşı, down to the Bosporus, crosses the bridge and rolls on via Galata Yüksek Kaldırım Caddesi to Ağa Cami Caddesi, and then turns into Sakız Ağacı Caddesi, where there is a large and magnificent house into which the dead skull enters. And we have still we have a first person narrator, and he follows him into the house and onto a room where a man is sitting at a desk, perpetually writing with pen and paper, but he is prevented from doing so by some kind of unseen force. And at this point, another man comes into the room, enters the room, and it becomes clear that he is the publisher of the newspaper for which the author is trying to write an article. The publisher reminds the author that Saturday is near, And if he is not able to finish till then, he should say it now so that the publisher can find someone else for the job. And now, or then, a conversation starts and the author explains why he is not able to write, although he tries hard. And this is the only one which I would like to read in Turkish. Efendim, kulunuz bu gazetayı yazmak için şu yazıhanenin başına geçtiğinde zihnü fikrimi istila eden mülahazaları kamilen sana tarif edebilmem hemen mümkünsiz ise de şu kadarını beyan edeyim ki madem ki şimdi asr-ı münevverede yaşamaktayız ve madem ki bendeniz dahi bu asırda doğup bu asırda tahsili ilm üfünun bitmişim, bu asrın ve bizzat kendimin tabii duygu ve efkarına karşı olarak kalem oynatmak bana pek güç geliyor. Besides that, the author is complaining that he has to save the smoke of ignorance while the sun of knowledge is enlightening the illuminated age. And the publisher counters to the author as follows: the reason why we have chosen to publish such a newspaper is so that those ignorant people on whom we rely and with whose help we stand may remain forever. And then it becomes interesting, but here I need, I think Laurent Mignon said it, I think I need help from people who are more into politics and more into the Nizam-Name Armenian, at least. Here starts a debate which reveals the conflicts within the Armenian Catholic community and the Armenian community in its whole, maybe. I just show you here the first page or the title page of the Nizam-Name Armenian, or in Armenian, Mezarlıktan, which was issued in 1863, both in Armenian and Armeno-Turkish. So the pages are like are divided in the half, in the middle. Also, other, of course, we have other developments which both of them are referring to. The publisher explains the situation of the community and the two groups within this community, namely those who separated themselves and are not so high in number, but more powerful than the bigger group, bizim taraftarlarımız, he says. So it becomes clear that this bigger group is full of ignorant people, and at the same time, this is the readership of the newspaper, which is very likely Sedai, the newspaper in the dream, which is very likely the same as Sedai Hakikat. Eventually, after a reply of the author in which he defines the role of newspapers as teachers of the people, he says, the publisher becomes uneasy. While going up and down in the room, he recognizes the skull in the corner, takes it, and says to the author, "Here, take it, a very old hat, put it onto your head, and I will see you. Just as this hat is a dead hat, you should also create a dead," I translated atmosphere, so he's using the word hiyet, ölü hiyeti. For your listeners, with your pen, or imagine that they are dead. And what the publisher predicts happens. The author puts his own head down and lays it on the chair. Then he takes the old skull that the publisher gives him and puts it on his head. As soon as he has the old skull instead of his own head, he begins to write. And at this point, this is the same point where Viçen, or the first person narrator, let's say, wakes up, and the curious dream, or the dream story, story of the dream, turns into a pamphlet with which he attacks the newspaper Sedai Hakikat. Tilkiyan's language is very, at some points, very sarcastic, and from time to time even ridiculous. At the same time, it is a text full of desire for recognition by Istanbul Armenians. As I told you earlier, he came from Ankara, and the first book published or text published we have seen is of 65. And after the 80s, we have nothing about him for now. In this pamphlet and in the earlier one, Sedai Nahak, Viçen Tilkiyan often uses similes, which he calls temsil or misal. When describing, for example, the first one, when describing his relationship with the others, Tilkiyan gives the example of a little boy who just started to walk and talk. And the older brother, instead of helping his little brother, hits him on the mouth and is not able to act with love. He talks of muhabbetsizlik. So Tilkiyan compares himself with a 2-year-old boy and the addressees of his pamphlet as the older brother who cannot love his little brother. Another one is the next one. Tilkiyan, he uses, when trying to explain his role within the Armenian Catholic community, I guess, he compares the community, millet, with a building, and when starting to build, one needs various expertise. The architect draws the plan, the secretary controls the registers, the carpenter puts up the poles or supports, direct, and then there is a very humble person who has to carry the sludge or chamur. In comparison with the architect, the service of the sludge carrier may seem less, but actually there would be no building if someone would not carry the sludge. So what I tried to, or what I read out of this, from this text, I already mentioned the inner Armenian conflicts, let's say, then the conflicts within the more concrete group of Catholic Armenians, because we know we have Protestants as well. The confessional and intellectual debates, and not to forget, or I would to remember the aspect of sarcasm, also from the title, as you can see, but also the Viçen's language and wording, and his pictures, especially the old skull. And last but not least, we have here a special, let's say, special literature. It's Turkish literature written in Armenian letters. Not only the text itself, it's we can say has some kind of hybridity, but the person or the writer himself too. We have the concept of between the stools, because it took a long time that we started to work with Armenian Turkish literature and to include it into Turkish literary history. And of course, the content would fit very good in what Strauss called Christian Turkish or Turco-Christian literature, or what Laurent called Kulturchristentum, Turkish cultural Christianity. Thank you for listening.